Hey there guys, InfamousAmoe again. We're doing an updated look at the junglers. I'm going to try to run you through who each of them are, what they do, what they excel at, and what junglers in a general sense are meant to do. So we're going to start with junglers in a general sense. Junglers' jobs effectively, they start in the jungle, typically they'll farm for a while, and they'll get the harvesters that is very, very crucial, and I cannot stress it enough, important, or just if the junglers don't do what is definitely their job and get the harvesters quick enough, you will be at a disadvantage against the enemy team if they do get harvesters. Doesn't matter how many ganks you get, it's going to be a problem, and they will likely overtake you in the late game if they get there. And if you don't gank and you don't get harvesters, you're going to be in for a bad time. Now, what else? Like I mentioned during that intro there, junglers typically gank. That's what they do. All of the junglers, for the most part, excel at it for various reasons, and some don't, and it's kind of an issue, but we'll get to that when we get to the character. Now, starting from left to right, top down, let's get going. Here we have InfamousAmoe, a Fury Order jungler. I'm going to go into his abilities here and explain him a little bit. Now, I'm not an expert on InfamousAmoe, but I do understand how he works and some of his things that make him interesting. However, right now he is kind of, I believe, down in play in the current meta. Not sure why exactly, I haven't looked into the details on that, but just keep that in mind. Sweep. Not an especially fast attack, but he does have a bit more physical damage than most of the other junglers, in that a lot of the other ones have about 40, I think one of them might have 42, but he has 50. It's kind of slow. That's the turnaround there. He has a shield right here, conversion shield. Pretty self-explanatory. Reaping dash is a dash. Does some physical damage to all minions it passes through and a single hero that it collides with. All that stuff does some damage. Also gives your super attack a little bit of bonus damage after you've come out of it. So a dash, an escape, or a way to get into the fight. Alright. Hamstring is an AoE physical damage ability. It also applies pretty solid movement speed slow. This is his bread and butter, I suppose. You're really going to want to utilize this. It's going to be the first thing that you max out. It can really help ganks a lot with that move speed slow, and it does a fair amount of damage in quite a big area. It's also his ideal wave clear ability. Now, onwards to Earth Shatter. It's effectively a skill shot in a line in front of you. It does a fair amount of damage, and it gives you a shield, or at least during the attack. Now, let's explain kind of what InfamousAmoe does and what makes him what he is. InfamousAmoe excels at ganking. And the way he in particular does this, because most junglers are good at ganking, what makes him good is he can go forward and attack ADCs in the back line, apply his, let's say, hamstring to make sure they don't get away, and use his shield in order to make sure he doesn't die in the process. And then if they're escaping, to ensure he gets the kill, he can use Earth Shatter, which does a fair amount of damage. It can easily finish off a squishy ADC near the end of a fight. Now, unfortunately, with InfamousAmoe, is once you've committed like that, if your team isn't necessarily with you and they don't follow through, and this applies to pretty much all the junglers, but you will likely die at that point. Should it happen that way. Voice is giving out. That's not great. Anyways, on to Greystone. What makes Greystone especially interesting as an overview of him is he's kind of tanky in and of himself, in that he has sort of a second health bar kind of in the form of his ultimate, which also comes with a knockback, but not many people get hit by that, so we won't talk about it. But on top of that, he also has his passive health bonus and armor bonus from Stoic. He can effectively be kind of tanky, or more so tanky than other fighters, while also just building pure attack speed and some damage. And the reason you build attack speed is because his abilities in themselves don't do very much damage. And the way warriors work, they get less damage per damage point, I guess, because they get 80% of it, whereas other people get a bit more. And it's hard to explain, but that's the point. Basically, they get less from it than others do. So what attack speed does is, whenever you get max attack speed, you're attacking about 2 times or more, a little bit more, I think, per second. So you've effectively doubled your damage, whereas even if you built just physical damage, and no attack speed, you would have you come out with less damage. I've done the math. A lot of people have done the math. You can look it up. That'll support that. So max your attack speed and then get some damage. Always get some penetration, because there will typically almost always be armor on the enemy's side, and it's always good to have some penetration available to you even if you don't necessarily use it. Now, going onwards, we're on to Grux, my personal favorite jungler, and the jungler I am most familiar with. The way Grux works is he has Chop, which is a relatively fast basic attack, dealing the typical warrior damage in the form of 40 physical damage, not 50. I don't know where that came from. And then Double Pain is deals a fair amount of physical damage itself, and it applies Bleed. Bleed drains 1% of a target's health over a certain period of time, but it does stack. So what that means is, if you can apply enough bleed stacks, it doesn't matter how much health or armor the enemy has, you have effectively, like, it's armor and health doesn't matter. It's going to take that percentage of your health bar away, irregardless of how much health you have. So it's an excellent tank killer, namely Rampage, as many are familiar with at this point. Then we have Smash and Grab, which will pull enemies to you in sort of a outwards arc, I guess. Now, something to be noted about Smash and Grab is if you want to dodge it, you want to be as close to the Grux as possible, and when he initiates it, you want to strafe to the left or to the right, it doesn't matter. That's your best chance of getting out. Don't walk backwards, you will get caught. Now, if you're on the very outer edge of it, walk backwards, not sideways, because if you're right in the middle, on the very back of it, you will get caught in it, because you can't walk strafe side to side fast enough if you're in the middle back end of it. It does a bit of physical damage, and it briefly stuns them for the duration of the pull. It's not a super long time, keep that in mind, but it is really good for setting up team fights and pulling squishies out of the tower if they got too close. Now, onwards to charge. It's a relatively good escape, 1,200 units is what it says. It's not too bad, does a bit of physical damage as well. Issue is the speed that it happens at is not too much faster than the basic running speed, so it's not like a teleport or anything. And he can't be stopped out of it. I mean, I've shot a Grux out of his charge with a shield shot on a Murdoch before midway through it. So it's very possible to stop. Now to his Warlord Challenge, his ultimate, which is excellent. I want to explain why. When you get enough attack speed on Grux, like many other warriors build. By the way, that is the most efficient way, is to build Max's attack speed. But what it means is, because what happens, after you activate it, it briefly stuns people, which is good. But the real beauty here is that his basic attacks gain bleed and 15 physical damage on his basic attacks for 8 seconds. What this means is that when you activate that, the faster you can hit, the more bleed you can apply, and the more you can get out of that 15 physical damage that it gives you. When you put out a lot more damage with attack speed than just building basic attack damage. Now going onwards to our next jungler, Kallari. Kallari isn't always necessarily used in the jungle, but she can be. That's why she's here in this list of people that I'm looking over. Now, the issue with Kallari you need to keep in mind right now is that before she had sort of, I guess, a mobility issue where she could kill, but it could be difficult getting there, and she'd usually get warded out of existence, right? Because you could see her invisible when you had the wards, so what is she going to do? Well, the issue is when they balanced her, they took away the bulk of her damage and gave her death sentence a global teleport, which deals a single slash physical damage upon arrival. Now, the issue here is that once you get there, you don't always have the damage to get the job done if they're playing well, and if they have wards, it is very likely you'll die. She still does have some interesting utility in the form that she can, typically if they don't ward enough, take harvesters pretty easily, then escape invisible. And here's why. Slash is a basic physical attack. This is the one I thought dealt 42, so it's 42.5 and a 1.5 second attack speed, same as Fangmao right about, except less damage. And then backflip, which lets her flip in the air, and she can do it twice at the cost of some extra mana. Yeah, it costs a certain amount per. It's her escape, and what you do is you'll backflip up and then shadow walk while you're up there, or you ask some people, I think you shadow walk and then backflip or something. Basically, what it does is, by the way, shadow walk, sorry, Makes you go invisible. You get less movement speed, um, and you do more damage when you come out of it, like when you attack from Shadow Walk. Now what you can do is you can Shadow Walk, and then because there's a delay before you go invisible, you can then backflip, right? And then you'll be invisible. Or backflip, Shadow Walk, backflip again. Basically, you go invisible while you're in the air, and you come back down. They don't know where you landed. Is the idea. I'm not super familiar with the character, not my cup of tea, but I do understand how junglers work and how she works, having watched her develop as the game has developed. Crippling Dagger is sort of her poke ability and ganking ability. Deals an exceptional amount of damage, physical damage really. Decent scaling as well. Applies movement speed slow. Excellent. She also uses it a lot to confirm last hits in lane when she's there. Pretty good stuff. Death Sentence is a global teleport. Like I said, deals slash damage. Should often be used to confirm kills, because you should never teleport to somebody full health, because if they're good, you're not going to kill them. They're likely to kill you. Kallari is extremely squishy for what she's supposed to be. She's, I believe, the squishiest of the fighters, the warriors, the assassins, all of them. Anyways, that's basically Kallari. That's what she does. We're also going to explain later how to help jungle with her, because it can be difficult if you don't have the right items, and I'll show that in my cards in a second. Now onwards to Camara, relatively recent addition. He wasn't in my last guide for the junglers, I believe, because he wasn't out yet. So I'm excited about this. This is a new one for me. Hack is a melee basic attack. It's pretty basic. I think it's the same as Grux's. No, I think it's a little bit slower actually. But 40 physical damage. Ambush is a lunge, dealing 40 physical damage in a small area upon landing. It's a good initiation. Although should be noted, it's only a targetable ability, meaning you can't use it to jump out. It has to be on an enemy. Now, if there are creeps behind you, I do believe. No, it's only on enemy heroes. I lied. I don't play them often, but no, it's only on enemy heroes. So once you're in, you're not going out most likely, unless they're dead. Unleash gives a max attack speed for the next 5 attacks within 5 seconds. Its physical damage, card scaling is reduced even more during these attacks. So it's already 80% less for warriors, and then now it's reduced more, so it's not going to do very much damage, but it's good for getting spirit regeneration stacks, which is his true bread and butter ability. And it gives him a ton of health regen as long as he keeps attacking an enemy, which allows him to jungle in the early game without the aid of health regeneration, really. Now, onwards to Cole. It's a high damage physical ultimate ability to target an enemy, and it also displaces nearby enemies and gives them a movement speed slow. 3 seconds. Effectively, you can jump on in somebody, blow them up, kind of separate them from their team a little bit, take them out, and usually you'll do this on, say, a Murdoch in the backline, just squishy backline heroes. I wouldn't recommend doing it to supports. If an ADC is available to kill, the ADC should always be your primary target as Camara. Now, Camara's seen a lot of play recently in the early level play, but you don't see him in a lot of pro games. The reason for this is he is completely avoidable as long as you ward. If you don't go too far forward, and a lot of characters can kind of push him away, or if they're in a group, they can just keep him away forever. Effectively, our Murdoch shield shot will do it. Various displacements, stunning him, if you can stop him from going through this combo. Plus, Cole has a sort of delay on it where it takes a second for it to happen, and that time you can definitely displace or stun him. My voice did something weird there a moment ago. You can stop him through any means, and then the damage won't happen, and you'll be completely safe. Now, if you don't play safe and you go too far forward, he can definitely punish you for it, and he is the best single target killer in the entire game, barring a really fed ADC, I guess. But definitely the junglers and the warriors and the fighters, he is the best at that. That's what he does, but it is avoidable, and that's why you don't see him a lot of pro play. It's pretty much. Also, as a side note, I do recommend building some attack speed on him. Those 5 max attack speeds that you get, the 5 attacks with max attack speed, are not going to be enough to get your regeneration where it needs to be, and that's really the key to surviving a fight as Camara, is getting those regeneration stacks up. I'm not going to tell you to max your attack speed on him, that would make that ability useless, but just get some attack speed, it'll really help you out. Going on is Rampage. Some of you may know him as the ultimate beef tank. That's kind of what he does. His swipe, basic attack, is actually relatively fast with the normal 40 physical damage. 1.2 seconds is not bad. Pounce is another lunge, I guess, doing physical damage on landing. You can also swipe to come down early before you reach your desired destination. Keep that in mind. So on the computer, it'll be left click. I don't know what the attack button is on PlayStation, but you can just look at it and it'll be in the same order. Now, he also has boulder throw, where he throws a rock and it stuns a hero for 2 seconds, which is an excellent amount of stun time. And it does a bit of physical damage, nothing too incredible, and it also knocks minions back. This is going to be his gank ability that is really going to make. My voice gave out again. I think it's a sign. This is definitely the last video I do today. Anyways, this is his gank ability. Really, if you land a good one like this and they're past the midway, or even at the midway, you're probably going to get him if your other lane mate is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Now, King of the Jungle is extra health regen, basically. Nothing too much to explain there. Adds to his tankiness a bit, helps his health come back as he does things. Enrage gives him an absolute shit ton of health regen. Apologize for my language, but it's the only way I could possibly explain or describe the health regen he gets. Now, it was nerfed and it's not as impressive as it used to be, but it's still plenty. So if you wait till he's low health to pop it, hit him hard and fast if he's absolutely a problem. And he's doing a fair amount of damage for some reason. And you can kill him pretty easy. Grux excels at it because he does percent damage, which his damage plus the bleed damage can help kind of counteract how fast Rampage's health comes back. Now, his pounce range is greatly increased, so he can pounce much farther. And you can still come back early if you need to, or you can come down early with swipe. Remember that. That's important for when he jumps a super long distance. You can use it to chase if you need to. Although, please don't chase too deep as Rampage. You might, give away a lot of kills, and it'll be unfortunate. Just keep it in mind. Then his boulder throw happens instantly. There's no delay. It just throws directly from you. There's no picking it up and then having to aim it type thing. It's like quick cast for the boulder. And then moving on to our last entry here on the list. Now, keep in mind there are other heroes that can jungle, but I'm doing kind of the main you expect in the jungle people where, Steel can jungle if you wanted to. Let's see. Really, anybody can, depending on the situation. But these are the kind of what you expect. Sevarog, often underrated, but in the pro league he's played a lot because he has a ton of utility. He's not only an excellent tank who can get a ton of health and damage as long as you get your stacks on your siphon builds up really well, but he has a fair amount of health and all that. But I'll get to his utility in a second. Now his hammer swing, much like Feng Mao, does 50 physical damage in it, but it's slower than some of the other fighters. Similar concept. Now he also has Phantom Rush, which is 1,000 units forward. But what's interesting is about Phantom Rush is it's not the fastest thing, but he goes through stuff, right? He goes through any enemies in his path. Doesn't deal any damage, but it's pretty solid. And I imagine the reason they didn't give it extra damage or extra range is because of how good it is on Sevarog to have this, as we'll get into in a second. Now, Siphon is his bread and butter. You always want to be using it to take creeps if you can. What it does effectively is every time you kill a creep with it, you get some health, and then every in increments at 20, 40, 60, and 80 at each one of those, as you hit that amount of stacks, you'll get an extra amount of physical damage applied, or it'll do 25 more damage here at each soul stack tier, which means at 80 stacks, you've hit what, 100 extra damage, and then a bunch of extra health. on your Q. Now, another thing you need to keep in mind, it's not just his siphon that gains that power, and people often forget about this. It also applies to his Colossal Blow, which we'll get into after we talk about Subjugate. Subjugate is it has a ton of cast range. You can cast from a pretty far distance away, but it's a small-ish circle. It'll be hard to hit until you get used to it. Now, it deals a bit of physical damage, but it does apply a root for 1 second to enemies hit. They'll also have a reduced movement speed after they come out of the root. Now, I understand that roots don't work the same as stuns. They can still use abilities and stuff while they're rooted. Keep that in mind. Not quite the same thing. Colossal Blow is what makes Sevrog a true monster for a variety of reasons. It's a relatively low cooldown, and it gets even lower as you level it up, I believe. And Sevrog does a ton of damage with it. It does a fair amount of physical damage, not a ton really. But 260 to start, and then it scales up, including with your Siphon stacks. And it knocks back a ton. Like, it throws enemies super far. If you can get to the back line, you can throw ADCs into your team, putting them out of position, making them easily targetable by perhaps another warrior on your team, or by your ADC, or by your caster. It allows you to choose somebody to throw into the midst of the fight where they may not necessarily want to be. Or, if you're not fighting much, and you need to push, it kills enemy minions instantly. And if you go to the side and you do it correctly and you aim it properly, you can kill a whole wave right away. Right away. There goes the voice again. Jesus. And then while you're waiting for that to go off cooldown, you can work with Siphon to help reduce them. And recently there's that new item that does damage in an AoE around you, I believe, based on your physical damage, on your basic attack, which can be used to help bring them low enough to get a whole wave of siphons, potentially. I haven't gotten the item yet, but I hope to, and I hope to try that out. Now, we'll go back to the main menu here. We're going to talk about a few things, a few misconceptions, I think, with warriors. You may think because you got the harvester key that you don't need to get a ward, but wards are super important for your success as a warrior, and you should have wards so that you can choose not only where they go, but so you can help your team in more than a way than just ganking, because you are going to fall off somewhat in the late game. And plus, wards give you damage and stuff anyways, and they can be super useful. I always have wards on my warrior builds. I know some people don't, but please, wards will enhance your play experience by multitudes. It's such the difference between being able to see where an enemy is escaping or where they are in the jungle, if they're in your jungle or if they're somewhere in their jungle, it can give you the opportunity to gank so much more, or just to survive certain situations, know when to go in, when not to go in. It is super helpful. Always get wards if you can. I understand that some people don't like to, and if you don't want to, that's fine. I get it, you want to have fun, you want to do a ton of damage, it's fair. But keep in mind, it will help you a lot. I hope this guide has helped you guys out somewhat. If there's anything I missed or anything else you want to know about, let me know. I have set up a Twitter account that I'm going to put in the description. You can ask me there, or you can just put it in the comments, whichever you prefer. Doesn't matter to me, I will check it in a timely manner. Otherwise, you guys enjoy your future Paragon games, and you have a good day.